Wishing you a very happy holiday season. Welcome to a new edition of Between the Horns, presented by your Southern California Toyota dealers. It's week 16. I'm JB Long, a very thin-skinned Californian, enjoying these 78-degree temperatures midweek here in Woodland Hills. I know Maurice Jones-Drew feels the same way. But it's good to have Stu Jackson here because he has earned his stripes in the Midwest, and he is ready. He is built for this trip to the Meadowlands. Stu, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you guys, too. Yeah, nice that at least this cold weather trip was saved until December rather than
cold is it supposed
September,
to be?
October.
Game day high of 27 in the Meadowlands,
What?
according to my weather app. So
I don't think I have any cold weather gear.
I still have my winter coat that I brought when I moved out here from the Midwest. I actually still have my ice scraper, but that's in my apartment, not my car anymore, because too many people made fun of me for having that in my trunk. Because, obviously, when am I ever going to use that out here?
Yeah, but I'm concerned now. Are you going to have the window open?
always.
Oh, all right.
Is it Aaron Rodgers? Whenever the Rams play Aaron, is it just that temperature? Does it travel with him? Did he bring Lambo with him?
I've 27. Oh, I'm gonna have to rethink this whole deal as we go through this show. Cause
Have you been binge watching Enigma? By the way,
No.
How well researched are you in the depths of Aaron Rodgers right now?
not that. I guess I haven't dove into that yet. I seen the little clips on X or whatever it may be. It's whatever, but I'm still worried about 27 degrees, man. For personal issues. I know the Rams will be prepared and ready to go, but Aaron Rodgers in the cold, it just brings back some memories. I don't like those.
Yeah.
Try and purge those memories, right? Hey, before we begin, Stu, will you prop those custom kicks up here on the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup for everybody to see? This is why our audience is here. Give the people what they want, Stu.
I don't know if you can see that as I kick JV's microphone, but
That's all good.
yeah. A couple Air Force Ones.
Should we talk some football?
Let's
Is
go.
it time?
Let's go.
Am I wrong that this is the ultimate trap game? I can't think, recency bias, I can't think of another trap game like this one for the Los Angeles Rams. Why are you looking at me like that? You don't think so?
I don't think it is. They're
come
playing.
on.
They're playing really good football, right? Offensively, they are at least.
You're talking about the Jets?
The Jets,
Oh,
yeah.
we'll get there, but okay, you beat your rival in Santa Clara. You sweep the 49ers. You got a nice long weekend to feel first place, to have all the press clippings rain down. You got two must-have division games at home on the backside, and here's this trip to face a 4-win opponent.
I don't see it that way.
No?
I don't see it that way. I see it really the press clippings of being in first was more about Seattle losing to Green Bay than it was the Rams earning the right to be there. When you hear people talk about that Thursday night game, they talk about the weather, the rain, the Devondre Campbell situation. It was never the Rams just went out there and dominated this offensive team from the line of scrimmage, right? They don't talk about that. And so to me, if I'm a player, I'm like, so we got to show you again how dominant we can be on both sides of the ball, right? It just doesn't seem like there was enough respect there in this time. And I in the national media, I kind of the Rams were 1-4 and you guys were burying them and guys were hurt and they come roaring back. I see all your posts. They're also, I don't see many other writers. I see what you say. There's not many other writers talking about the Rams. So maybe this is one of those games where you got to go make an example out of someone.
You don't think there's any human nature that they're battling this week?
I don't know if there's any human nature that they're battling against, but I do think that this is a different Jets team that I expected coming into this week. I certainly didn't expect them to be coming off a performance like they had last week against the Jaguars. Just with everything that they've experienced this season, all the changes on the coaching staff and everything else, to see that Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams are still playing at a high level or still giving it their all essentially at this point. It's a team not to be taken lightly for sure this week.
I am thankful for that because I was watching Sunday. I'm like, of course they
Right.
come back in that second half and they turn back the clock and they look like they did when they were playing together in Green Bay.
They're fighting to be on the Jets again, I feel like. I think it's like Aaron Rodgers is going to do this whole thing in the offseason. I don't know. I'm going to go sit in darkness. I'm going to do all this stuff. Then I'm going to say,
Draft
you know
a
what?
quarterback. I'll mentor him.
Yeah. I'll play another year. Why not? And Devontae's over here I still got it. Garrett Wilson's throw me the ball. There's so many different pieces on this team. It's amazing to see they only have 4 wins with all the offensive pieces. Again, their offensive line's the issue, but I just don't see it. Like, there's too many good players on that team to say like,
Brees Hall's knee is healed
all of a sudden. Yeah, just everybody's right when the Rams come to town.
Have you thought yet this week about that game at SoFi Stadium against the Jets in 2020? When I've never seen a motivational mismatch like that one. Rams had a chance to go win the division. Jets had every reason to lose, including one big one named Trevor Lawrence. You talk about any given Sunday. From that moment forward, I vowed to never, not that I took that one for granted, but I vowed never to take another NFL game for granted after that happened.
Frank Gore. That's all I remember. It was Frank Gore. Like, he's old. He's not supposed to be doing this. He's breaking tackles, finds a way to get in the end zone. I was like, what is going on? I remember the Jets. We owe them.
Okay.
We owe them.
All right. We'll circle back to them by the end of this edition of Between the Horns. Before we put the two most recent wins in our rearview mirror, though, do you want to talk some takeaways, both from San Francisco and I think how it ties into the win over Buffalo in terms of, Sean McVay's overriding point that stretch of 5 days, Stu, showed that we can win in different ways. How much do you think that impacts what the Rams are capable of from this point forward?
I think there's something to be said about just being able to have control in those situations, or I guess controlling the outcome. And what I mean by that is you think about the ways that the Chiefs have won some of their close calls. I mean, again, still counts the same as the Rams wins, but especially as you get closer to the playoffs, being able to, like I said, have control or be in control of those outcomes and having it be more your responsibility than, say, a botched snap or, something that could maybe be considered, rare or unlucky, working out in your favor. I think that bodes really well for the Rams.
Yeah, I think, I think the Rams have been lucky, but I believe luck is preparation times talent, and that's what equals luck, right? Because you got guys that are in position to make plays, and I think they're finding a way, right? And finding a way is the scariest thing about it, because you start to believe this ball is going to have an opportunity. If I'm like Darius Williams, right? He gave up a post to George Kittle. He was nowhere near him. And then it comes back in the similar situation. They do a double move on him. They try to throw it to the Ram killer, Juwan Jennings, and he's right there to make a play and pretty much seal the game. And so when you have the thought process of find a way, you don't allow little things that happen early in the game to affect you. If you go back to the Bills game, find a way, figure out a way to close this game out. However it needs to be, you find a way to do it, and then they do it. And so when you have that mentality and that mindset, you practice it a little bit different. The guys' focus and meetings are a little bit different because they know any given play can be the one play that'll kind of break the camel's back, the straw that breaks the camel's back. And guys are waiting for those moments. And that's what you saw. And like we talked about it on the broadcast. Sean was like, listen, we have to run the football.
That's my biggest takeaway is whether you're scoring 44 or not scoring any touchdowns. In both games, he was willing and determined to run it a dozen times more than he threw it. I'm not sure if that's maturity or what it is, but I don't think in an earlier iteration of maybe his career, when you're struggling like you are to throw the football on offense in that first quarter at San Francisco, that he chills and doesn't chase that game and just willing to embrace what that moment was.
Those 3 points right before half were huge. They were straight runs. Like, here you go. We're just going to get in the field goal range and we'll figure it out. And that, again, that's the whole finding a way mentality. Like, okay, Matthew Stafford, yeah, we want to throw the football, but right now the ball, he can't grip it. He can't throw it. And we talked about that when we interviewed him about how wet it was. It was just wetter than what they thought it was going to be, and we can't throw the football. So guess what? We're just going to turn around and hand it off. We're going to get these 3 points. We'll go into half. We'll make our adjustments. We'll come out and we do what we have to do. Rain stops. There you go.
You just made me think similarly to the end of the first half against Buffalo, too, because there was a chance to put your foot on the accelerator and go there. And not that he played it conservatively. They took a look. It wasn't necessarily in the making, so they said, let's get to the half and let's come out and get that first possession afterwards.
Old Sean would have tried to take a shot. He'd have been out there taking shots. So
Before we leave it behind, I'll say this. I think the 49ers played badly. I don't care one bit. It doesn't undermine anything that the Rams did, but I think they played a bad game on Thursday night.
I think Dre Greenlaw going out, his Achilles tightening up on him, played a huge role.
Completely different.
To all the Rams fans out there, like Fred Warner's awesome and Bosa, none of that works unless you have Dre Greenlaw out there. We saw that in the first half. He had 10 tackles in the first half. Like, he is literally the heart and soul of this team. When he goes down, that defense looks completely different. Hufanga didn't know what he was doing. Guys are all like, it's crazy to see one guy, and that's not the guy that gets paid, right? He's up for a contract. He goes out and the defense just goes with him. It's bad. And then you have the guy leaving at third quarter, which
That's what I was going to say.
made me feel so much better. Just when there's disarray in the Niners organization, I love it.
Can I just say something? I know you well enough to know you liked beating the 49ers without a touchdown. That was you could not have drawn that up any better for your text threads up there in Northern California, could you have?
Look, guys don't even respond anymore. I just, when the Rams won the game, I just sent the demon emoji smile face, just so you know, like no matter what, we got you.
A muddy run first field goal driven.
That's
game.
what you guys want. You guys want to be physical and tough. Here you go. We could do it too.
All right, 3 games to go. I wonder, from your guys' perspective, in what ways do the Rams look playoff ready? And then my follow-up will be, what do they still need to improve on? But let's start with, in what ways do you feel like the Rams are equipped for the postseason based on their record currently?
Well, going back to the discussion we were having about being able to run the football and kind of the ability to do that, even if it means exceeding pass attempts, like really the execution there is the biggest thing for me, because you need to be able to control time of possession in the playoffs, especially as you get deeper and deeper into the postseason, and just the way that it's opening up the offense, and maybe even taking off some pressure on some pressure off of the defense. The teams that have in the past that have made those deep runs, I feel like have been able to be efficient in the run game, get the most out of their run game, even if it's not something that's an out of this world performance. It's still been enough to sustain those drives and keep the offense ahead of the sticks, and like I said, just take some pressure off of their defense and keep those other teams at bay.
Yeah, for me, it's 2 things. One, making the necessary adjustments regardless of contract, how you're feeling. Putting Bo Limmer at center, that lets me know that you're ready to go to the playoffs and make a run, because you're putting the guy that plays the best, right? He goes in after that Miami Dolphins game. You put him back in, offensive line is kind of set in what they need to be, and then they're healthy, right? Like at the end of the day, we look at Detroit. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit. Like you're out there with dudes that weren't even on your roster in week 5, starting, right? It's hard to combat that, and so for me, being able to make the necessary adjustments, both personnel wise and play call wise, are huge, right? Willing to run the ball when you want to throw it and those type of things, but also having a healthy team. It's going to be huge going into the playoffs.
What about early down run success on defense? Because since they got wiped at home, right? Saquon Barkley had that day. There's been a good track record of success now, like going to New Orleans, limiting that game to what they did, coming home and making the Bills one-dimensional. And even in San Francisco, like I get it, like Deebo Samuel helped tackle that running back as much as the Rams did. I'm not undermining that. But at the same time, I think a 3-game sample size might be indicative of some improvements, adjustments that the Rams have made that could play well down the stretch here.
I feel like Cobie Turner is kind of the cog to that, though.
Okay.
He's done a great job of taking on double teams and winning his one-on-one blocks more than anybody, I think, on that defensive line, right? If we ever when we're calling the game, it's like Cobie Turner right there with a tackle, first down, right? Then he's able to then flip around and come back on third down and get pressure on the quarterback. He's playing some of his best football, but they're playing off of his energy. Bobby Brown, in certain situations, has been a dominant guy at the attack of a point, right, or the point of attack, excuse me. Right, where he's going on a tackle in the tight end or a tackle in the guard, and he's pushing those guys back. Just the ability to be able to stop the run on the early downs, and it's funny when you have older guys. The saying is you work early so you can have fun late, right? So you want to stop on early down so you can rush the passer. But Bobby Brown doesn't never get to rush the passer, right? But he's bought into what his role is, and I think that's important.
One of the great things about winning last Thursday and having the mini bye is it sets you up, Stu, for a great week of practice. And the time on task, I think, has been the biggest driver of success here in the second half of the season for the Los Angeles Rams. Where can they still grow to not just get in the dance, but maybe do some damage once they do?
Yeah, I think it's just making sure that they continue to have that momentum with the run game like we talked about, and just maintaining that continuity that we were talking about with health and whatnot. But really just continuing to make sure you have that marriage of the run and the pass, because as we've talked about and as we've heard McVay talk about, for this offense to operate at its peak, if you don't have that, then it becomes one-dimensional, and we see some of the performances like we saw earlier in the season. And so I think if you see more of that, maybe there's room to grow there a little bit. But to me, like we've talked about, I think it's trending in the right direction where, we're starting to see that come to life more like we've been accustomed to.
To me, I think it's coverage on the back end.
Yeah.
More consistent, right? We saw Cam Curl take a big step on Thursday night covering George Kittle. Awesome. But then we've also seen guys running wide open, right? So having more consistent coverage and I guess a closer proximity to the targeted receiver would be something that's going to be needed as you get to the playoffs, right? Because let's just say you're playing the Minnesota Vikings, who are, they're hot. They could be a first-round pick play for you, right? Here in SoFi, they have guys that are moving right now. T.J. Hawkinson's back. He wasn't here when you played last. Addison's playing well. Obviously, Justin Jefferson. Like, you got to have stickier coverage, I feel like, once you get to the playoffs. And that's what the Rams had when they won the Super Bowl. It was just stickier overall. Guys were, like, when the ball's in there was a guy on that guy, right? It wasn't like a big space of what we've seen. And there hasn't been a lot of it. I just need more. You just want more consistency of guys being closer to the receiver when thrown to.
I would say, too, especially because while it doesn't seem like it's been as big of an issue as it was earlier in the season, there's still some explosive plays in the pass game that have, surfaced or crept up and hurt the Rams defense in that secondary. So trying to avoid those as much as possible, I'd say, is also part of that.
Do you remember about a month ago when you were in that seat and we said, Coach MJD, solve the red zone for us, right? And you gave some helpful pointers to help turn the Rams season around on short fields. I got another challenge for you, okay?
Okay.
Help the Rams turn around their first quarter. Help the Rams get off to faster starts because, what was that, the 9th scoreless first quarter of the season for the Rams in Santa Clara last week? They're a bottom 5 team in the NFL in terms of first quarter production. That's living dangerously.
Yeah, that's definitely tough. Let's see.
Because it goes into the trap game theme that I presented earlier, too. Like, what's the easiest way to avoid a trap game in New York?
Get up early.
Throttle them early. Make them disinterested in playing in 25-degree weather.
Well, I think the first thing is getting your tight ends more involved in the passing game. The boot game should be big. We talked about that on Thursday night. We didn't see the boot game until it was needed in the fourth quarter. Starting fast starts with the first play. Whatever the first play is, you want to get 4 yards, right? And you're supposed to pick your best play to get 4 yards or more on your first play. What do the Rams average on the boot game? I feel like starting the game with that, getting the ball out quick. It might have been Minnesota they did that, where they started the game with a quick boot, easy throw, just get the ball out to the flat.
I think that and Buffalo were the only 2 first drive touchdowns of the season.
Yeah, and so to me, that's if that's where we have to be, regardless if they know it, we have to figure out a way to get +4 just to get in front of the chain. So many times or a hitch to Puka, right? That hitch he caught against Ward was amazing, right? Even though it was good coverage, he was able to make a play. Anything that gets you ahead of the chains on your first down, that's going to start the drive. So the first play is the most important. And I'll make sure we harp on that this week when we call the game. But if you can get 4 more on the first play, a little okay, now second down, it's third and manageable. We're able to kind of get a first down. Then we kind of get in a rhythm. But if it's 2nd and 10, 2nd and 8, now it's like, it's a more uphill battle. So that first play, if you want to start faster and score points, it's all about that first play. Whatever play you decide that's going to get you 4 yards or more will get you going.
Cannot stress this enough. The Los Angeles Rams are not overlooking Week 16. Neither are we. Not that it matters. But we do owe it to our audience to talk playoff picture. And I know, Stu, you kind of did a deep dive this week. You want to lay out the circumstances for us with the Rams leading the way at 8-6. They control their own destiny. Seahawks also 8-6. They, too, control their own destiny. Cardinals still a factor at 7-7. They need the Seahawks to lose, but they still have a path.
Yeah, there's still very much up for grabs, not only in the division, but just in the playoff picture. And again, a loss to the Jets doesn't completely eliminate those chances for the Rams, obviously, in terms of winning the NFC West and ultimately getting into the playoffs. But, I go back to what McVay said, where, ultimately, like, winning is what allows them to continue to control their playoff fate. And so, you get a win over the Jets and you get some help from the Vikings and get some help from the Panthers. The Vikings play the Seahawks. The Panthers play the Cardinals. That sets you up and puts you in a really good position next week, and then obviously keeping an eye on Buccaneers and Cowboys as well, because again, with the Buccaneers being the 3 seed, that depending on how they do in that game, that could potentially impact some movement for the Rams depending on how things go for them this weekend.
That's a good point, because if you're like, what are the chances the 2's going to lose at home to the 7 in the playoffs? I'll rewind time 1 year and think about what the Packers did in Dallas last year. Like, there is real value to potentially earning that 3 seed. I see kind of 3 brackets in the NFC picture. There's the race for the number 1 seed, right? Detroit, Philly, Minnesota, all with 12 wins. Let's start there. Who do you like to prevail in that battle for the 1 seed?
Oh, it looks like Philly. I think Philly will probably get the 1 seed. The way they're playing, the way their schedule kind of plans out. But Minnesota, man, it's hard for me not to talk about them and feel like they don't have a chance because they're playing some of the best football. Sam Darnold, I mean, I'm a Sam Darnold hater. He chose to go to the other school. He didn't start well in his career. And I guess most people used to tell me flowers bloom at their own time. Well, Sam's starting to bloom. He's playing some of the best football that we've seen, and he has this team believing in them, right? Like, for them to go beat Chicago the way they beat Chicago, and they have Seattle, like, they're ready to go. They're primed and ready to go, and O'Connell's doing a great job with all the guys that he has, getting guys motion, and I mean, they're good. I will say Philly because Philly's more talented, but I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota wins it.
Philly has the easier path at Washington, home to Dallas, home to New York, as opposed to Minnesota. Motivated going to Seattle, which is really important for the Rams' chances. Green Bay at Detroit is how they finish. Who do you think wins the NFC North?
I think the Vikings have a real shot.
Okay.
I mean, as surprising as that may seem to some, I just look at, I mean, we were talking about this before the show, like the amount of injuries that Detroit has piling up right now defensively, and then also now just this past week with David Montgomery. I just don't know how sustainable that is. I don't count them out because, again, Dan Campbell really has a good pulse of that team and how to keep it motivated. But they've been in some shootouts offensively or with some of these games recently, and I just don't know, because of the health of that defense, like how much longer they can, like I said, sustain those performances and ultimately overcome that. Whereas the Vikings, I feel like, have a healthier defense, and between the two of them, I think are in a little bit better position because of that health to potentially win that division.
So I mentioned those 3 brackets. We talked about the top one. In the 6-7 spot, you got Green Bay with 10 wins and on a roll. You got Washington with 9 wins in that 7 spot. And then we get to that middle mix, and this is where the Rams are, with Tampa Bay and Seattle 8 wins apiece, and Arizona, who we mentioned. Here's what I find interesting. The Seahawks play on Thursday in Chicago, the day after Christmas, on a short week 17. So the Rams will know the score well in advance of what we now know is a Saturday night primetime game at SoFi Stadium. I'll pause here to say, get your tickets Saturday night, Cardinals and Rams in a massive week 17 showdown. But that's a really interesting shape to that week, because you'll know what the Seahawks outcomes are, not just this Sunday, but again next week before the Rams play again. Yeah,
it could potentially set up a clinching scenario for the Rams as soon as next week. Again, depending on how everything this week shakes out, but especially with that Thursday night game, who knows what we could be looking at on that Saturday night game.
Can I say that I'm still scared of Arizona?
You should be.
Yeah.
Like, they're physical, and Connor's running well. Kyler's playing some of the best ball that he's been playing for a while. He's taking shots now. The Patriots did a great job of shutting down Marvin Harrison Jr., but he's still a playmaker. Like, Arizona's sneaky, and I think the only reason that I feel like this would be a trap game is because of how good they are, what they've been doing kind of in the desert. No one's really talked about them, and you're like, we got to get prepared for that. And that'd be the only reason I could call this a trap game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice revenge opportunity, and we hope that it carries the biggest stakes of the season. Let's talk some personnel for the Rams, because we haven't touched on Tyler Higbee's expected return. I think that's big for this team in this moment. What do you think he adds to an already built-out tight end room that I think statistically has probably underachieved, but came up clutch most recently at San Francisco?
Well, I think it gives them, one, you get a guy that's been there before, that's confident in what this system is, has been around the longest tenure Ram, which means a lot. But 2, I think, again, if you can get him going, his ability to catch the football, a lot of those we talked about starting fast, right? How many times have we seen Matthew Stafford just whip out an arrow route to him and he gets 7-8 yards? Like, we just haven't had that ability yet. And I don't know why it hasn't been there, but just that alone, where you can throw a 2-yard route and he can turn it up for 6 or 8 more. It helps you start faster. So there's a lot, and I think also in the blocking game, like, he's big enough, strong enough to block some of these guys in the run game to create a little bit of more removement than what they've been getting to open up bigger holes.
What are some of the things that Sean, Matthew were saying this week in anticipation of Higbee's return?
Yeah, just that it's going to be a big boost. Personality, energy, whatever you want to say about him. I mean, all of those things beyond just the tangibles that he brings and the traits that he brings as a player are ultimately what he's really going to be providing this team. I mean, even out in practice, like, that energy has been really noticeable and infectious with the rest of the group. And, like we talked about, that familiarity with the offense, so you can't discount that either. And so, I mean, you look at that collectively, I feel like it's going to be really, really huge.
Never hurts to have the most prolific tight end in Rams franchise history joining your group for the final 3 games of the regular season. I just want to speak something into existence here. Tyler Higbee, the way that he's rehabbed, deserves a rematch against the Detroit Lions in January. I hope that comes to fruition. Here or there, however it plays out, I want to see Higbee against the Lions next month.
I like that. You talked about the energy, big rig Hig. Like, that's what you need. You need a guy that's going to drag guys and carry guys. We were talking about that Jets game. There was a highlight that was on X, and it was Higbee, like, catching the ball, spinning off 3 or 4 guys and running the extra 20 yards. Like,
that was the longest catch and run of his career, 44 yards.
Where's that been?
He had a touchdown in that game too.
Right. Where's that been? Right. So having that energy back is going to be huge.
What about Cobie Durant?
Yeah, so he was medically cleared to return. He was limited in practice on Wednesday, and so trending in a positive direction is what McVay had said Monday about his availability for not only practice but being active and playing against the Jets, which again, like we talked about with Rodgers and Adams, but really when you're going against a duo like Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson, you're going to need somebody like Cobie Durant to pair up with Darius Williams to try to counter those guys. So all signs, again, trending in the right direction, positive for Cobie to be available on Sunday, which will be as good as Akello, I should say, played last week.
Yep.
It'll still be good to have Cobie out there.
I would say no one benefits more from the mini-bye than Kyren Williams, the Rams running back with nearly 60 carries in a 5-day window, beating the Bills and the 49ers. How is he set up for success in this closing stretch?
First and foremost, as a running back, you want to be sore, right? I want to go into a game knowing that I played the game. Kyren has not only probably should be sore, but the way he's played, with the physicality, the breaking of the tackles, the energy that he's been showing over the last couple weeks, this bye week is going to allow him to recover and be able to go. But then I think they're going to, if they lean on him the way they've done, and Blake Corum, they lean on both those guys, that's going to be the key to their success throughout the next 3 weeks, right? Controlling the clock, controlling the line of scrimmage, setting up play action pass, taking your shots. But he should be ready to go. He should be, this is what you do all that training. He trains where I used to train too, so he should be ready to roll down this stretch with the way he works out. And I talked to the guy, said he's been this offseason, he was in there getting it in. So his body should be ready, and I'm excited to see him go.
Yeah, he's going to be so inspired by the Friday night playoff win in South Bend, too, from the Fighting Irish that I think he'll be.
Yeah. No question.
I'm
sorry.
I'll bookmark this part of the show.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'll keep this in mind.
Yeah. Do we have like a push-up deal going on?
No, I can't be. Have you seen this guy's workouts?
That's what I'm saying.
I can't
like a
keep up
5
on the
push-ups or
push-up front
something.
with Stu. Come on. Let's talk Jets. Picked as a contender, they've been one of the most disappointing teams in the National Football League, 4-10, and yet, even though their defense has taken a dive, they've got enough firepower on offense to be a problem. I don't like that sigh.
I don't either. Sometimes if you get just a little glimpse of hope, it's like that little spark starts a wildfire. And that's what I'm scared of what happened in Jacksonville, to be honest with you, is that all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers is moving out of the pocket, throwing the ball deep. Devontae Adams is running past guys. Like
He's healthy. Isn't that the biggest thing? Like Aaron Rodgers looks healthy.
he hasn't looked healthy either until literally Jacksonville. So that's the scary part. Now they do have some turmoil going on because Garrett Wilson's very frustrated there, and so don't be surprised if you see him get targets early in the game. But if they can get those two guys going, that's going to be an issue, right? Running the football is something that they're still trying to work on. Offensive line is kind of in disarray. Guys are banged up and hurt and all that stuff. They got a young guy, started the kid from Penn State. But if you want to stop the Jets, you have to corral Aaron Rodgers early. Like you have to get to Aaron Rodgers early and have him start doing his little antics, the sad face, the throwing the ball down.
I think that's right. I think incompletions like dirt balls from Aaron Rodgers will be a sign of early success because you don't get to him. Like he's as good as I've ever seen at protecting himself. They've invested in their offensive line. I get it, but it's not like their offensive line has been world beating. He just knows. He knows what you're throwing at him. He knows when the down is up. He knows when to get rid of it.
I have to tell you this story. So James Jones, a good friend of mine, it was when the no-fly zone in Denver was going on, and they had been practicing all week, and they're all excited. And James said they're going out right before the game. They're like, go out and play after the warm-ups. He was like, hey, look, I've been watching them. If your route is supposed to be at 10 yards, make it at 8 because the ball has to come out. And that's the kind of stuff that he's going to tell. If you start getting to him early, he's going to have those guys cut their routes off because he has to get the ball out quick. And so to me, again, if the Rams' defensive line can really, that's going to be the key to this game. If they can get around Rodgers and get him frustrated. Because the receivers are already kind of starting to, Devontae's already barked a little bit. Garrett Wilson's now barking. If you can make that whole offense frustrated, you'll have a great chance.
Look, when you face a team that's already fired a general manager, a head coach, a play caller, there's going to be some volatility there. The upside volatility, Stu, can be dangerous, but the downside volatility, whether it's an inability to run the football, whether it's their defense giving up 25 points a week, like that's there too, and it's there for the Rams to take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was going to say, too, with just getting to the offense and creating that frustration early because they haven't had the complementary performances from the defense to match some of those performances by the offense this year. And, that defense has shown some vulnerabilities, especially against the run. So if you can get to that offense early and like we were saying, get them frustrated, I think that makes it easier to, again, take advantage of that defense that's had its fair share of challenges this season.
What else? What do we miss? Other keys to the game? Other things you want to get off your chest before we go?
I'm excited to see how this team plays in the cold. Even though I know Detroit's in a dome, but if you have to go to Philly, it's going to be cold, right? Everyone else is kind of domed, but
so checking another weather box.
Yeah, just like if you get into the playoffs, you just never know what happens. You may have to end up going somewhere you don't want to go.
Do you remember being in the Meadowlands last year? Rams coming away with a narrow victory. And then we get on the plane and we wait, and a good outcome lands from Lumen Field in Seattle. It was Pittsburgh last year. Maybe it's Minnesota this year. I love when history repeats itself.
It's been doing that a lot this year, hasn't it?
History?
Yes.
Let's keep it
At
going.
least last year. I don't know if that's history, but
yeah, the second half run certainly feels familiar. So
I'm done. You done?
Ready to go. Go Rams.
All right. Go pack. Go shopping. Bundle up.
I don't know, man. I may be whining this game. I can feel it. I can just feel it. You know how you can feel that? I think I'm gonna be tough though. I'll tough it out.
Right on. See you in South Bend, kind of.
Sort of.
Good luck. You guys deserve it. It's been a good season for the Hoosiers. For MJD, for Stu Jackson, I'm JB Long. Thanks for being here for this edition of Between the Horns, presented by your Southern California Toyota dealers.